All right, here we are. It's all done. We're looking at probably 4 hours, 5 hours. I was walking away off and on. Dedicated time, you could probably get this done in 2.5, 3 hours, I would estimate. So we're gonna start with these guys right here. So these two right here, Flea Ball FX6 is what that's gonna go to. And then basically that'll probably be the spray bar, and this should be the outlet. It should all fit relatively well. This right here is the first one we put together on the beginning part of this video, and they go to those three outlets that are right in there. I came up with a solution as to how I'm going to be able to use those without sucking in fish, baby fish, and so on, and maybe even shrimp, is a 2-inch coupler attached to a 2-inch to 1/2-inch adapter, and clearly that's going to be a 1/2-inch slit to 1/2-inch threaded, and that just kind of loosely threads on. It doesn't need to be super strong. If you do this, don't over tighten these, just kind of put them snug. You don't have to worry about too much. How high those come out of the water is fairly undetermined, or not out of the water, but away from the sand. It depends on how high the second shelf goes. I do know to hide those a little better, I'm going to go at least 1/4 of those will be under sand, and hopefully my plants take care of the rest. Let's get to the way I drilled these. So what I did is I essentially put the drill motor at an angle, started a hole, and then I put it 90 degrees, and I just pushed straight through to the other side. I don't get fancy with these holes like I do my spray bars. My spray bars, I make angle holes and sometimes point two holes at each other to kind of create more turbulated flow at the surface. At the front, up there, we are at the back of the tank if you didn't catch at the beginning of the video. The holes are approximately 6 to 7 inches apart, and this is true all the way across. That was probably the hardest pipe to put in, because to glue it over here, and once it's set, and then you got to go over there, and you got to basically put your glue in the 90 degree over there, and that's all together, and then kind of twist it. And it was really snug against the glass is how I designed it. So basically this is the part that's going to literally support the stainless steel mesh. And then as we got in further, we got to the back. That was a little hard to put into. I'm going to come to this one right here. It'll be a little hard to see. In fact, I could just pull that off. I forgot to get a 3/4 plug. And I got a whole bunch of 1/2-inch plugs. And those were actually meant to go into slip fittings, and so I came up with the idea to heat that up with a lighter and kind of slowly push it in. Ultimately heated up the outside and tapped it on the floor, and bam, we're done. That's it. That is probably the coolest thing I discovered with 3/4-inch pipe. If you wanted to make a flush fitting, you can get 1/2-inch plugs, and they will go in there with a little bit of heat. Back to the setup. Some people might notice that the start of the flow is kind of one big circle, and we got these pipes with a lot of little holes back here. I might lose a little bit of overall flow pressure in there, maybe not. It depends on how much power I get on my Flea Ball 306. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope it stays flow and even. My spray bars in the past have routinely shown that no matter how long you make them, eventually they will lose flow at the other end. But with the FX6, for example, I had to go all the way across the back of the tank, and then the sides basically had less flow. How I mitigated that was I made smaller holes. In this case, I did not do that, which could come back to bite me. If you do this and you get a pipe that does something like that, sticks up off the bottom, same goes for the second one here. Don't worry about it. All the way to the sand, gravel, whatever you put on your stainless steel mesh will hold it down. In fact, that might even be a positive thing. As long as you don't have too much of a bend, it shouldn't put too much stress on the pipes. Let's get to some important information here. Some people might ask, why did I glue all of this? Why am I gluing literally all of this? Two reasons. One is this is going to be going into my new house that I'm moving literally tomorrow, and it's not going to move. The whole goal is to set it up, put everything in, show it all works before I put fish, sand, and everything else in there, and then that's it. I don't want this to come apart. It needs to be secure and safe. Normally, like my spray bar down there, that's all push fit together. There's only a couple pieces I think I bothered to glue. It has never actually come apart unless I mess with it. I actually left it that way so I could do that. So that's the reason for gluing, is this is going to be covered up to 100 to 200 pounds of sand or gravel depending on what you do. I will have almost 200 pounds of sand myself, and a lot of plants. I want my plants to grow and be healthy, so as well my fish. So the idea is kind of a set it, forget it system. I'm hoping everything grows with the way the plants I have is they do their job, they grow to look good with less pruning. That's the idea. Let's get to some important stuff here. So I wanted to tuck that under the stand, so that's why you see those, I believe those are 45-degree couplers, two put together. And then I'm going to put a 2x4 or 1x1 back there, and then basically tie them down so they can't move. The valves are going to go on those. Here's your threads that'll come off that. That's how you're going to do it. Thread into this. Reason being, these valves do fail. So you want to be able to change these out. So I highly suggest you do not buy 1G glue. Always use thread tape. And then basically I have these unions. And the reason why I suggest unions over quick connects is this O-ring right here will not let water come out. And I always do thread tape also on here. That's just something I was taught when I was young from my grandfather, my dad, you name it. So I always thread tape no matter what, especially with water. Other takeaway is going to be you might need to stagger these. At least in my case, those pipes are awfully close. You see the unions are a little wider. So I will be staggering them in height from one to another. And make sure you label them in case somebody has to come in behind you because of the mess that happens. They can do something about it. Just wanted to take a moment to provide some tips on this because this can be kind of a complicated part. So if we look at these T-valves, not everybody will know this, but you see that little rim in there. It's right around an inch. So what I do is, if you can see very faintly, I can here, see those yellow lines. So that's roughly just in front of the lines, and I have the center mark where I marked on my pipe back there, which is where that center mark was. And basically, I'm trying to figure out where I need to cut the pipe in the back to segment these together. Future note, for this particular project, get their clamp on or push on T-valves that are just like this, but they got little U's cut out in the back, and you kind of push it on and glue it in place. And then you take a drill motor and you just basically drill a hole right through the center. So rather than doing the hard way that I'm doing it, that is the easiest and probably the fastest way you could possibly do it. I think there may be a few cents more. They might actually even be cheaper. So that's a tip for when doing future aquarium projects or plumbing in general. Irrigation or yard sprinklers is a common place they use them apparently, and I understand why now. All right, let me get back to it. All right, tip number 2. So we know the system I'm making is going to be 3/4 inch pipe going all the way around. It's important that you don't poke your transport pipe full of a whole bunch of holes. So basically you want to, you want to kind of stagger these guys about every 6 to 8 inches, depending on your flow, which I did kind of wrong there. And make sure when you drill your holes that if I were to drill going along here, you flip the pipe, That way your holes are going to be angled down at the proper angle on both sides, because if I just basically rolled this over and drilled my holes, odds are I'm going to accidentally either put them on the top, off directly to the side, or they're not going to even point in the right direction to begin with. Same concept kind of goes for if you do your own spray bar, kind of like what I've got sitting over here. And I did a video on this way back when. Messy. Basically, I've drilled my holes to point in different directions, but I made sure that every time I moved it, that I flipped it rather than roll it over. That way you don't end up water spraying everywhere, or in this case, all of your water going straight into the sand and not into the glass. It's important we put the water to the glass and let it kind of bubble up on its own and kind of create its own sort of current to create its own pressure of equilibrium underneath your sand. Depending on how much pipe you do, could take a considerably more powerful pump. I am about 90% positive the Fluval 306 is going to be able to handle this system. I don't think I'm going to run into flow issues per se, because I'm going to kind of be sparing with the holes on the 1/2 inch pipe, and I'm going to increase the holes towards the end of the pipe, so that way there's plenty of pressure going through the system, and then towards the end will be kind of the relief point if there's too much pressure. That'll kind of prevent potential issues of you bursting your pipes if you manage to get a pump that's way too much. Fluval FX6, for example, if I were to pump it into this and turn the valves full open, there's a pretty good chance that you're probably going to start breaking something underneath there with just the amount of holes we're going to put. So it's important to consider what your goal is. So if your goal is to bubble the sand, you want to make sure you use beefier pipes, more holes, and more equal distribution. So the design I'm going with is not the design you're going to want to go with. You're going to want to do more of a bus system and kind of equally distribute the water faster through the pipes throughout your tank. All right, talking long enough.